My top 10 power ratings had some pretty radical changes in movement after week 12. There was not just plenty of chaos in terms of upsets, but there were also really impressive performances and disappointing performances from teams that I viewed in a different way then that I view in another way now. So to start off, Texas at 10th. I said in my Georgia versus Texas instant reaction that Texas is not a top 10 team. I then looked over everything else, and I think that they're a fringe top 10 team. So, in a traditional sense of top 10, they're not top 10 quality, but they're 10th because someone has to be at 10th. That's how I view Texas here. There are some teams, like according to FPI, Miami, USC, Utah, a lot of these different teams are ahead of them. But some of that's because of strength of schedule, style of play, and other things that a computer can't pick up but the human element can. I am not going to drop Texas from, I believe I had them 7th last week, 7th or 8th, to outside the top 10 because Georgia put together a really good performance, especially when Texas was in that game in the third quarter. And because of an onside kick and Georgia being a really well-coached team at home, they were able to pull away. I have Texas at 10th. I think there's a pretty good chance they'll fall out by the end of the year, but I'm still going to keep them here. I'm not going to totally remove them after Georgia, who has the best head coach in America and Kirby Smart, drubbed them. I'm not going to do that. Their defense is still a top 10, top 5 unit. Their quarterback in Arch Manning has still improved from where he was preseason. I just think Georgia's defense played wonderfully, and their special teams unit and team talent composite is still high up there. At 9th, we have Utah. Utah improved because they just keep blowing people out. They destroyed Baylor pretty handily. They gave up a ton of yards. Yes, they did. But they won 55-28, outscoring, Utah 20-8 in the fourth quarter, 27-11 in the second half. Baylor outgained them in yards, but we saw this with Auburn before, where Baylor was 3 of 6 on fourth down and had 2 additional turnovers. So Utah was essentially +5 in the turnover department, put up over 400 yards themselves, 483. They had a pick six, and they had runs of 74, 64, and 67, and a 25-yard touchdown pass and a 65-yard interception return. They explosive played Baylor to death and ran for 380 yards, 8.8 yards per carry, and 5 touchdowns, held Baylor to 4 yards per carry. Sawyer Robertson, he's had a good year, but he can't do it all on his own, and that's what he's being asked to do every single game, is carry the team on his back. Dampier didn't even have a good game. He didn't. But Utah still won, and Beard Ficklin, who is a true freshman quarterback for Utah, he played well. 301 yards on the season, 3 touchdowns, 97.3 QBR. He had 23 passing yards and 166 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns, with several long runs. Utah's rushing offense lines of scrimmage and their defense is combined phenomenal. If they get that rematch with Texas Tech, that's the only team that could beat them. If Texas Tech doesn't play Utah in the Big 12 championship game, they'll win that game by 40 points, potentially, or at least it'll feel like it. Utah is all that can stand in Texas Tech's way. Texas A&M fell 4 spots. I know they won, but you don't get to look like that and not drop in power ratings. From a resume standpoint, you probably don't drop, or if you do, it's by maybe 1. They looked like absolute dead dog for a half of football. And the only reason they came back and won is because South Carolina sucks, and South Carolina is poorly coached. And South Carolina's head coach has, this is probably going to be mean, I know, but he has a little bit of he has a little bit of a little guy complex. And he celebrated at halftime when the game was far from over after several fluke plays. Just ridiculous stuff, really. It's a good win from a culture and coaching and adjustment angle by Elko, but from a power ratings angle, it's not an encouraging result. And as of today, I'm removing Texas A&M from being a part of the teams I think can win it all. Every team from here on out, I believe, can win it all. And why I don't think A&M can win it all, a lot of it has to do with the fact that their defense is questionable, and I think Marcel Reed is not good enough to put the team on his back. They need one of those to really transform into at least a great unit, a top 10 aspect of their play in order to win it all. And I just don't see that right now with them. For Utah, it's mostly talent reasons. And for Texas, it's the fact that it's game 10 and they're just totally broken and their coaching isn't there either. Notre Dame's at 7th. Everyone from here on out can win it all. They played Pitt impressively. CJ Carr didn't even have a good game, and it was very similar to Utah, where quarterbacks didn't have a good game, but they just physically pounded their opponent. Defense did what it needed to win. I like Notre Dame for 2026 more than 2025 still, but I'm including them in that national title conversation because they're balanced. They can throw to win. This channel will make you a college football expert and help you enjoy watching games and make more accurate predictions. So what are you waiting for? Like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, comment your thoughts, and watch the video all the way through so that you can get the full package. And check the description and pinned comment for more ways to help yourself and this channel. Although that's been a bit of a question in big games, but they're still good enough there. Unlike last year, they can run to win. Their run defense is stout, and their secondary, it can be gotten by the best passing offenses, but that's a select few teams. So depending on the bracket and depending on how real their defensive improvements are, I do think this team can win it all, and they certainly have the coaching staff and, most importantly, one coordinator in Mike Denbrock to be able to put together some phenomenal performances in a row. At 6th, I have Texas Tech. Tech's defense, from an explosiveness standpoint, a havoc rate standpoint, and efficiency standpoint, is the best in America. Ohio State's, I think, is better overall due to fundamental soundness and depth, but Tech's is insane, and their offense is improving. They're getting healthier. Morton is healthier. They're able to run the ball pretty well. I made a video discussing this, and you should search it up, why Texas Tech can win it all. That should be one of the first things that pops up, or you can scroll to find it. You can also search for it on my team playlists section on YouTube. You just go to playlists. There should be a Texas Tech playlist, or at least there will be by the end of the day. If there isn't, you can find my video on it where I explain it. That's where I'll leave it at. Texas Tech, because their D-line and some other factors, I think can win it all. 5th, Alabama. Alabama didn't drop too far for me in power ratings. I had them at 3rd. I dropped them to 5th. The rush offense is concerning to me. And unlike Ohio State and unlike Indiana, I just don't think they have the QB or top-end toughness at wide receiver to compensate for that. I don't. Their defense is actually approaching the level of those two. But Mendoza and Sayin, on an average basis, played a phenomenal level in a way that Simpson just has not for 3 games in a row. And Indiana, when their O-line is healthy, has a really good, if not possibly elite, rushing offense. Ohio State's is, we'll see. They look good against UCLA, but I still don't trust it. The difference is they have Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. And their defense has first-rounders at basically every position. You do not have that. So I'm dropping you. That loss to Oklahoma was very bad. It can be a good thing if they correct their issues. Like, if they start running the football better, I think Daniel Hill is their best running back. They should go with him. And if Simpson's able to clean up his accuracy and the defense continues to improve, yeah, this team can win it all. And I still think they can win it all. But as of right now, I'm dropping them out of my top 4. And teams 5 through 7 are there are different tiers to this. So Notre Dame, Tech, and Alabama are in a tier. This is, I would say, tier 1C. Tier 1B is one team, and that's Oregon. I need to see how Oregon looks when healthy, because we've seen them healthy against Indiana and Penn State, and the Penn State game at the time I think was impressive. The Indiana game was not. They haven't really been healthy since that. They are getting healthier, and I like what I've seen out of Dante Moore. It was against Minnesota, but it was a nice rebound. Not taking it into full account, only taking a smidgen from that, but it was still a good performance. The defense is Lupoy and Lanning's best. The rushing offense is closer to the 2023 rushing offense than the 2024 one. That's very good. This team has the potential to be number one in a way that a lot of people do not realize or recognize, and that's a shame. If you think Oregon can win it all, there's a lot of value with their current odds to win it all, especially since I don't think that Harkey, Moore, Stewart, or Bryant will be injured for the long term. I think a majority of those players, if not all of them, will be back by the college football playoff. So, yeah, that is something. They're in Tier 1B, and Tier 1B is closer to Tier 1A than Tier 1C. A healthy Oregon, if I knew they were healthy, would definitely be in Tier 1A, and then Tier 1C would become Tier 1B. Speaking of Tier 1A, we got Indiana. Indiana, I've thought about this, and in my rankings, so my power ratings, I try to use the exact same criteria and minimize hypotheticals as much as possible. My subjective ratings, which I still like to call ratings because I like to judge things in a neutral field, I don't like to look at strength of record since it's just so unbalanced conference to conference. In my more subjective ratings, where I can play hypotheticals, I'd have a healthy Indiana at 1, based on what I've seen. It would be very close, but I think a healthy IU has this ability to punch back and respond that really no team does. They still don't have the depth that Ohio State or Georgia does. But again, healthy Indiana, they're deep enough with players like Charlie Becker or Isaiah Jones or Stephen Daly stepping up to where, if healthy, depth in an individual game won't become a concern. Depth in an individual game was a concern for Indiana last year. It's not this year. What's concerning with Indiana's depth is if they have a season-ending injury, they're going to have a big drop-off at that position most likely, especially on offense. Meanwhile, Ohio State and Alabama, and even Oregon, the drop-off isn't as severe if you have a permanent season-ending injury. So in a 4-game series, Indiana's depth is still a concern. In a 1 game, it's not in the same way it was last year. But I have them at 3 here because this is using the same criteria and not playing what-ifs with health. Otherwise, Oregon might be higher too. I can't put them with how they've played and with their current health status ahead of Ohio State, who I have at 2, and I think you all know who I have at number 1. Ohio State and Indiana, when I dropped them, I didn't drop them because I view them any less. I view them as the exact same teams as I did last week. But both of them played, well, scrubs, so I don't take anything away from that, really. Ohio State's defense is first. When healthy, their passing offense is the best. Their special teams unit, don't care about the kick return. It was a sweet moment, but is that indicative of their special teams unit all of a sudden being good? We'll see. We'll see. It was a good play. I will take a modicum of something from that, but also it was UCLA in the same way that for Oregon, it was just Minnesota. For Indiana, it was just Wisconsin. The reason I view them highly is because I viewed them highly before their games, and they won, and they did well in those games, so I still view them highly. But neither of these teams on this list, or any team in America outside of what Indiana did at Oregon in October, is as impressive as what Georgia just did to Texas. It was 14-10 at half. The momentum is beginning to swing in Texas's favor. Georgia goes down. They get a touchdown. They've been abusing Texas's secondary at different times throughout the day. But Smart says, you know what? We're ahead by 11. I want to take full control. And they execute an onside kick when no one expects it. And the announcers even mentioned this earlier in the game. Oh, they execute trick plays on special teams when no one expects it. Well, no one expected them to kick an onside kick up 11. And they executed it perfectly. And no one, all the Texas players thought they were going to return it. And all the Georgia players knew it was going to happen. In that specific instance, no matter how that kick went, they were going to recover it. It was the perfect call. And it was the same thing with on that prior touchdown drive. They were in 23 personnel, 2 running backs, 3 tight ends, and they passed it, and Texas covered it, and they still got the first down on the 4th and 1. It was a perfect play call, perfectly executed. The only team, again, that has put together a performance at that high of a level all year was a healthy Indiana against Oregon, which I think is the most impressive win of the year still. The difference is, as I've mentioned, Indiana is not healthy, and we're not playing hypotheticals here. I'm taking everything into account, so I can't put Indiana at 1 based on the November slate that I've seen. Georgia, as of right now, who they were against Texas is who they are, because that's their most recent performance. The IU performance was a bit ago, and they've had some injuries since then, so I have to take that into account. I have Georgia as of right now at number 1. We'll see if I have them winning it all. At this point, I'm starting to think that the best team in America might not win it all, because the field is just even enough, and there's enough strength of schedule disparity with some of these teams at the top, like Tech, OSU, to a lesser degree, you could say Oregon and IU. You could also say the same thing with Notre Dame. Definitely the case with A&M, where some teams that might be power rated higher could be inflated, or they're not, but a battle-tested team that isn't as good might be used to the uncomfortable situation more and earn a close win. So I have no idea who I'll be picking to win it all. Wouldn't be shocked if it's Ohio State for like the 4th week in a row, even though I bumped them down, more so because I bumped Georgia up. Wouldn't be shocked if it were Indiana. Wouldn't be shocked if it were Oregon. Wouldn't be shocked if it were Georgia. But one thing I can say is that Georgia performance was the second most impressive in America, and as of right now, I still think Kirby Smart's the best head coach, and that performance was Saturday. Georgia is peaking at the right time, and therefore I'm going to give them credit for that, and I think they're the best team in America as of week 13. Thank you for watching. It's my mission on College Football with Sam to make you the most informed, knowledgeable, and entertained fan as possible. We aren't perfect, but we hit the nail on the head more often than we hit our thumb with the hammer. Make sure to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, comment, and if you're here, you've probably already watched the whole video. So thank you for doing those things.